Hello and welcome to the 14th video in this series, Programming Simple Flappy Robin using Cocos2dx version 3 for Android. So this video then we're going to start adding some sound effects. In the download file included with this video, as usual you'll have the new resources I add, and in this case I've added 5 sound files here, a couple of explosions. A couple are called success, but they won't be used in this video, it'll be later on when we score a point, but we haven't added that in yet. And also I've got this Robin tap one, which is simply sound that's played when we tap the screen. So the way we're going to handle the adding in of our effects then is we're actually going to use our game manager singleton. So this will have a function added to it in the public section called play effect. And then what we'll do is we'll send a constant in, which we're about to define in constants.h, which will tell the game manager which kind of effect we want to play. So inside constants.h then, just down the bottom here, I just want to define these effects then. So just say effect and Robin tap and a 0, and I'll just see if I can speed things up by doing some pasting here as well. 2 and 1. So we want Robin tap and then success, even though we won't use it in this video, we can use it in the future anyway, and explosion, like so. Okay, so that's the first thing added in there. Now back into cgamemanager.h then, the way things work is we use something called a simple audio engine, and it works exactly the same way as it does in version 2 of Cocos2dx. For the iPhone version of Cocos2d, so the non-X version, they actually changed the audio engine, but it doesn't seem to have changed, certainly not telling me it's been deprecated. I haven't been able to find any documentation say otherwise. It seems that we still use the simple audio engine as with version 2 of Cocos2dx. So the way that works is basically it's very simple. You preload any of your sound files into the audio engine, and sound files are split between music and effects. We'll cover music a little later on because it's to have the background music on now without the option of being able to turn it off very quickly gets a little bit annoying, so we'll save that a little bit, but we'll load in some effects. And we want to ideally have this done before anything's shown on the actual application screen. So we'll want to load, sort of have an initialization to load these in that we'll do inside appdelegate.cpp. To do that we'll need a late init function, I've called it. There are a number of ways of doing this. I like doing it like this. And I'm just going to declare this then inside cgamemanager.cpp here, just so that we've got for now the function, and we'll fill it out in a minute. And before I forget then, go into appdelegate.cpp and just at the top of here then include cgamemanager.h, and then somewhere here, I guess just after here, I can then say cgamemanager instance and late init. So now any initialization, also later on when we retrieve the database stored volume settings and the high scores and things, we can also do all that inside this late init. So that's been called before we actually run our scene in the director here and see something on the screen. So now we want to look at then how we're going to preload our effects. Well, the way we're going to do it is we're going to try and save a little bit of repetitive code. So we'll need some definitions, but before we do that we'll define some functions. So the first one I want to define then is in the private section, and what we'll call it is a void, and we'll call it preload effect. So this is the function that will be called to load an effect of a name that we specify. So we'll have a const car pointer to the name, and we'll also have something called the num. And all this is you'll notice the way I've named the files, explosion 1, explosion 2, etc. Well, when, as in a typical game, you would have 10, maybe 20 different effects that do the same thing, then we're going to send the name explosion here with the num, and then append these using sprintf to a character array to then load the effect. So just minimize the effect of duplicating lots of code. It doesn't make such a difference with such few files to use, but I thought it might be worth doing it this way anyway. So we've got our preload effect, and then in the private section we'll have play effect name, and inside the play effect name we also have constant car name and also the number of sounds as well. And in the public section then we'll just have void play and effect without the name, and this will take in the effect number, which is what we've just declared inside constants here. So we'll call that function, say, with effect success, and then this function play effect is called with that effect, and this will then call the effect name with the correct name set and the correct number of effects available there, and we'll select one of them then at random so we get some changing effects. So that's the definitions. So I'm just going to move then into the implementation part here. I've already got late in it, I've just realized, so I'll just delete that out. Just copy the good old brackets here. And while we're at it, we can then take the other two functions in here as well. Okay, so one thing we do need to know is how many of each of the effects we actually have. So we'll declare those as constants at the top. And like I said, we don't have many here, so this is really as a demonstration of how you might want to do it if you had many more effects than we actually have. But underneath the definitions here, then we'll say define and knum explosions, and we've got 2, and define knum robin tap. God, typing can't do it again today. Robin tap is just 1, and last but not least knum and success, and we've got 2 of those success files as well. And what this will allow us to do is if we ever drag and drop more effects in here, we just have to change these numbers and not any of the code inside the file. That's the main reason behind all this. So looking at loading everything up then, first of all inside late init, we'll have an index and set that equal to 0. And now we can just say for index is equal to 0, index is less than knum explosions plus index. Very easy code here. We're just going to call preload effect, and the name we want obviously is explosion here with no s on the end, and then the number is index plus 1. So going through this loop, this would load up explosion 1 and explosion 2, and I'll just copy this down twice here, and then we can just say knum robin tap, and here we want success, knum success. So this will then call the preload effect to actually load all of our effects into the audio engine. So let's go down then to that function here, preload effects, and get that going. So we have car and effect name, and this is something that you've seen now a couple of times inside the code. Of course, using C++ I could use strings from the standard library, but I really don't like using, it comes from a habit from the chess engines, the standard library in C++ where I really don't have to, because I find it just bulks out the application a lot. I suppose it doesn't matter so much in terms of an application like this, but in the chess engine, an executable of 100 kilobyte, I just have to include IOStream and string or something like that, and I all of a sudden have a megabyte of executable with a load of stuff in there that I don't actually need. So I prefer to do things this way. It's just a bit of a habit. So we want to memset then our effect name with 0 and to the size of, and its effect name, I'll just copy that and paste that in here like so. So that sets then our character array completely to 0, and now we can use our sprintf where we want to print to our effect name. We want then to print the string and then the number and then .wav afterwards for the wave, and that's with then the name and the number like so. And now that we've got our file name, we can finally say, I was going to say simple audio engine, but we actually need to say Cocos2dx, or Dention, yeah, I think that's the right way of saying it, and then simple audio engine, and then get instance, and then there's a preload effect in there, as you can see here, and now we just send in our effect name. So that then, you can see why that's saving a little bit of code here. So now in the init, we'll call that for all of our files, and like I said, if we ever add in any more of this type, we just need to go up to the top and change the number here, and everything's preloaded for us without having to change any code. So now if we move then into playing the actual effect name, into play effect name here, rather than preloading the effect, the first thing we need is a random number. So I'll say randnum is equal to rand, and then we'll say rand moduloed by the number of sounds, and then obviously plus 1 to get our random sound. And now actually what I'm going to do is just copy this code here and just paste this inside here, except now the effect name we're going to be using is using our random num like so, and now we actually want to, instead of preload effect, we want to just call play effect like so. And if you're wondering about volumes and things, they get set in another way, and we'll cover that in some later videos when we start using those settings, but that'll probably be when we're in Eclipse and actually working specifically on the Android device, because I want to save the settings on the Android device to show some Java and C++ interaction. Anyway, okay, so this function is now called with the name that we want to call, the total number of files available, selects from that number a random number, in this case it will be a 1 or a 2 for the explosions, and then we play that random effect. So the last thing then is this public play effect function, which actually does the playing. So we'll put a switch in there, and we want to switch then the effect number, and now we want to say k effect, and it doesn't have it, I need to include constants at the top here. Just scroll back down, I'd forgotten to include it. So we want k, so if it's k effect explosion, then all we say then is play effect name. Technically we could actually, I suppose, have these strings defined as constants as well, so if we ever change the name we don't need to do it twice, never mind, too late. So it's k num explosions like so. So that'll then play the explosions, and I'm just going to copy this code here and paste it in twice. So k effect robin tap, and here we want k num robin, oops, goodness me, k num robin tap, and robin tap, and success, and success, and last but not least k effect success, and that then will simply play the relevant effect. And that's actually all we need to do to get our effects playable by our game manager. So not very much code at all. The last thing I want to do then is play some of these inside our Hello World scene. So into helloworldscene.cpp, we've already got C Game Manager included here. So the first sound effect will come when we tap the screen. So what we'll say is, as long as we're receiving a touch, so we haven't returned false here, then we'll just say C Game Manager, and then instance, and then we'll say play effect, and we want to say k effect and robin tap, which is the screen tap. And I'm going to copy this and just jump down now to game over, and when the game's over we want to play our explosion for now. And that, believe it or not, is all there is to it. And what I'm realizing now is I probably haven't got the sound recording on the recording here. I'm just recording from the microphone. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stop the recording here. Hopefully I'll edit this okay together and start the application with the sound actually being recorded as well. So hopefully we're back now with system audio. So I'm just going to run the application. And now you can hear, hopefully, if not okay by yourselves, through the microphone anyway, because it might be picking it up, but he can hear that the robin taps are heard on the screen, and now if we crash into a tube we get a very definite crashing sound there. And now if I just let him hit the floor, maybe we get the other, oh, we've got the same explosion, and try again. Okay, and that was the other explosion. Good. So that then is sounds working, and everything's makes the game look a little bit better. And hopefully you've been quite impressed with the framework from Cocos2dx, how simple it is actually to get sounds working. The background music we'll add a little bit later, because in the previous version of this, with Cocos2dx version 2 that I did of this series, it got very irritating very quickly. We'll do that when we've got the settings to actually turn the volume off for that as well. So now we've got the sounds working then on the game. The next thing to do is look at actually scoring the game, and we'll have a look at that then in the next video. So I hope that made some sense. Thanks very much for watching. Comments, questions, criticisms welcome as always on YouTube.